You're listening to The Magnificence of the Three with Jason and Time Out, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to The Magnificence of the Three. My name is Jason Ford. This is where we level up with Godfidence, not religion. I am here with my brother from another mother, Time Out Tumua. Both of us are authors, but Time Out, you got the awards, man. So we'll get a little bit more into the book towards the end, but we're going to cover all the material from the book here. We're continuing on with the awareness of the atom through the Bible. And I thought before we get started, I was not to be redundant, but I always want to make it clear to the audiences, it'd be silly of us to sit here and push an opinion on you. We're simply giving you a different perspective on the Bible and how to interpret the journey of the mind. If you take it literal, more power to you. What we found is over time, religion has kind of pushed this literal context, and it has turned people away from having any sort of spirituality. A lot of people leave the church because they're like, wait a minute, there's snakes talking. I don't believe this. So time out before we get started. Why don't you lead us out in a quick prayer, and we'll get rolling.
Thank you. Good morning. Let me start off with thank our Father in heaven for everything he's done for us. Thank you for another beautiful day. Thank you for adding another day to our lives, and continue to ask for your spirit to walk with us. Be here in this room as we continue to work our way through the context of what you've showed us. So thank you for choosing us to be your servants for this job. I ask that your spirit be with us today and to bless these our families, our friends, our neighbors, as well as the nation. Thank you again, my Father in heaven. I ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, Simon, I thought I'd start the show. I know both of us have been through the recovery period. We both struggle a little bit with alcoholism. We're very open about that. And we're going to get more into our stories in the next couple episodes. We're going to take a break from this particular material and try to give some of the viewers some hope. Because you and I are here for a reason. We'll talk about how we met. We talked about that in the first episode, but I think it's important for people to see that there is a divine intervention, and this is an amazing orchestration. What the Creator can do with people like you and I that came out of some darkness and hopefully are shedding some light to people. And I thought the quote that I would start off with which has really been my mantra now for years, and that is from the late Wayne Dyer. And he said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I think that is extremely true. And if you haven't lived that way, you will see if you put that into action, that your external circumstance will literally change depending on whether it's positive or negative. So we've got a lot of good material here. We're going to start with kind of a recap of the Ark of the Covenant, which for those of you that don't know, this is where the 10 Commandments allegedly were held. And we went through a few of the different things in Genesis. For example, he made us in the image of God. So the atom, when we talk about the creation of the atom, the proton, the neutron, the electron, the structure of positive and negative being inherent to this universe, yes. There's a lot of different segues as to how we can apply that to life. And that's one thing that we want to do on this cast is give people practical application to the material we're talking about. Because when you look at this from more of a psychological perspective of an allegory, I had mentioned earlier, if you take this literal, that's fine. We're not pushing a truth. But if you look at this as far in the form of allegory, which the definition of allegory is really taking names, places, and things as symbolism for a story, and how we can apply that as an archetype for life. So Genesis, we have the image of God. We have male and female, which opposites were created. Opposites attract, the proton, the electron, the negative charge, the positive charge. And you get that proton constantly kind of creeping around, but it keeps that infrastructure together. The electron? Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Okay. Today we're going to be this is the final piece of evidence that we're submitting to prove that the Ark of the Covenant was designed after the atom. It manifested here. The God planted this evidence for us to discover. These are markers, but this is the biggest marker of all. It was the Ark of the Covenant, and it helps us digest the information that the Ark was indeed designed after the atom. and God was aware of the atom when he said he created heaven and earth.
So we have male and female, which is opposite. And then we also get to Genesis 3, 4 through 6. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. Okay, so when the serpent allegedly tells Eve that if she eats the fruit, that she will then be like God, knowing good and evil. Expand on that a little bit.
Okay, the key in that sentence was in that scene was the how desire was included in a conversation. You know, when I look at that conversation, I'm looking at desire, I'm saying desire should never be here, because it doesn't matter when you take desire out of the conversation or include it, it does not change the fact that Eve was going to eat the fruit of knowledge. But by including desire means that the inclusion of desire means that this was a parable of some form. And then I came to conclude that desire was included because it was the first emotion that showed up in the biblical record. That means desire was a representative of emotions. And desire turned out, as I claim, that desire was a neutron of emotion. It's just by coincidence that emotions were also discovered later on was classified as having a positive and negative classes of emotions. But desire, however, as I claim, acted as a neutron, because everything has to be, all fundamental elements of the design has to be in three. This is why emotions also has to be in three, because it was designed after the atom. So the emotions has to have a neutron, and that's why desire was included here in this conversation, because desire was a neutron, is still a neutron of emotion. It means that you can't. There's no emotion can come to life without the desire to do so. If you want to be angry, you have to desire to be angry. If you have to love somebody, you have to desire to love somebody, and forgive somebody, you have to have that desire. This is where I didn't say this in the book; it came later, but this is where your free will comes into play. It's the exercise of that desire. If you don't desire to do anything, that means you can't do anything.
Nothing will manifest.
Nothing will happen.
So let's touch real quick, because I forgot to mention the whole premise of the title of the show, "The Magnificence of the Three," is Nikola Tesla's quote, which is, "If you understood the magnificence of the three, you would have the keys to the universe." And we notice, and we're going to cover here over and over and over again in the Bible, we see the number we see it come in threes. Right. The number 3 shows up and is very significant here. And one thing, when you talk about desire, I was thinking, is actually a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, which is, what a man thinks about all day long is essentially what he becomes. Wow. And when you think about desire, it's like, what do you desire to be? Do you desire to have good traits as a human being? Do you decide to use to live in love? Do you decide to live in expansion, service, or do you decide and make the choice or the desire to do service to self, which is usually leads to fear, to anger, to resentment? And you have that choice. That's the way it's structured. But I think that's what you're getting at with desire. Is that correct? That what you desire is your choice, and that's what becomes manifest with the atom. Exactly.
That's what desire was. It's a root of survival. That's how, that's how why it was why desire was the first one that showed, first emotion that shows up in the biblical record, and it was attached to Eve's existence. So Eve, the mother of mankind, this is how God planted one of the pieces of evidence, was desire and Eve came together here to make that call to go for knowledge. So this is how the mother of mankind was here, the mother of emotions was here, and they came together and make that decision for survival. Going for knowledge means you survive. This is one of the separation of man from beast happened here. Scientists are still looking for that time when man separated ourselves, when we separated ourselves from the beasts of the field. And this is the Bible said, this conversation here, this is one of the point of separation was right here when Eve decided to go for knowledge. It was done by desire. Desire was emotion, because every behavior, every act, everything that we do, there's an emotion behind it. And this is why desire showed up here, because Eve had acted on something, and God was telling us it was desire, the emotion, that enabled her decision.
So going on to the 3, so we'll recap fairly quickly because we have a lot of good material. We also have Noah's sons. So you had 3 sons, and you're claiming as far as the sons go, you had Ham, his son Ham being the electron, Japheth, the positive proton, and then Shem, the neutral neutron. Without getting too far into that story, you can read within the scripture and see where that's coming from. One being a servant, etc. When we go to Genesis 15, 9 through 11, we get the heifers cut in threes, right? Expand on that a little bit. So you have the heifers cut in threes, and then the symbolism of God or the neutron going through the center.
Right. This is was so specific as God this is the first time like there were insinuations, like pieces of circumstantial evidence from the garden where the fiery fury, the swirling fire was in the garden, which I claim was representing God. But here, the division of the animals was really specific. 3 animals, all 3 years old, and God told Abraham, cut them in half and separated, line them opposite of one another. So this was a depiction of the atom as I claim, you know. So when God walked through at night as a fire, this was the first time it was direct piece of evidence that shows that God was attached to fire. That when God walked through the middle of the divided animals, he presented himself as a neutron for the first time here in the Bible. God was the neutron in the atom. So when he walked through the animals in the middle on fire, what is it? A pot of fire and a torch. He represented himself as a neutron. And later on down the line, and we're going to discuss that today, where he's a lot more specific of his position in the atom.
Then we go to threes again. So you get to the Ark of the Covenant, which holds the 10 Commandments, and you have it's designed with 3 boxes.
3 boxes.
All right. So you've got acacia wood is one, and then you have the middle one between the gold boxes. So you have, once again, the example of the structure of the 3 with God in the middle. What do we have? Expand out. You had acacia wood, and God placed this box in the middle between gold. So there's 2 gold boxes, and then acacia wood in the middle.
Okay. So this is separation of the opposite particles, 2 opposite particles, and separation was separated by something that was different, and that something was the wood. So this the box represented the nucleus of the atom. Okay. So
we also had God had also decided to appear to Israel in 3 different forms, and this is really going to lead to what a lot of you out there, especially where we're at,
before we go there. There was also the lid, the cover of it's called a mercy seat. The cover of the ark was designed with 2 angels, they call cherubims, on each side of the lid.
That's right. You had, so yeah, the lid of the ark, or what they call the mercy seat, you had 2 angels on the side. So once again, representing God in the middle, and then 2 on the opposite sides.
Yeah, the two representing the opposite particles, and then God appears in the middle. Specifically, he didn't appear anywhere else, but he appears in the middle between the two angels. So this was one of those that was so direct that you know. A marker that was so direct that was make it simple for us to discover and discern when knowledge accumulated to a certain degree that I think we have that today. This is why we found these things the way, because science had found them, you know. So
once again, what's the point of all this? The point of all this is that it seems a little too much coincidence that we're seeing everything in 3s here, and you're also getting the representation of the neutron, which I believe the unbiased, because it is a neutral charge, just like this reality seems to work, which is, and it's in a lot of different religion. You go into even Buddhism, and they'll talk about this reality being a mirror, which I'm a firm believer that what you put out is what you get back. So the universe is unbiased. So the neutral particle is an unbiased particle. It's your choice. Do you choose positive? Do you choose negative? And then you get to the other, what you call marker, which is, and this is going to be very interesting because we're going to actually lead up to the atom bomb. And this comes in, God also decided to appear to Israel in 3 different forms. He walked with Israel during the day as a cloud, then at night as fire, and of light.
Right.
Okay, so expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so that was one of the best marker that God left in of how he was fully aware of the atom. Was he walked during the day he was a cloud, at night he was fire and light. So we're gonna these are all pieces of circumstantial evidence. However, nobody had really seen God create the universe. So all we have are those stories from biblical record. So what we're using is what we're coming through here is we discover the atom in there, and then everything fell in place. So all these pieces of information are circumstantial pieces of evidence. They are not direct evidence, but in the court of law, when there's no direct, let's say somebody committed a robbery, so there's no direct evidence that nobody saw. He was covered up. He had a mask, so nobody seen his face. But what he may have dropped was his fingerprint in there somewhere. That's what you call a piece of circumstantial evidence. So if he walks out and got in a car, somebody seen that car, and it turned out that car was registered to him. That's a piece of circumstantial evidence. Even if the person didn't actually see his face, but because the car belongs to him, that's a piece of circumstantial evidence. This is what exactly the kind of evidence that.
And the more circumstantial evidence, the more valid.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. So then we go to the structure, and the reason I'm going through this quick is we have a lot of good stuff here to go into the arc and then the atomic bomb of the atom's design, because within the neutron and proton, you also have quarks. Okay, so both the neutron and proton are made of 3 quarks each, which are smaller particles. And then both of those make up 99.9% of the atom. So the nucleus of the atom, which is the neutron God particle, and then the proton representing man, I thought this was compelling. 99.9% of that nucleus is what makes up the atom itself. Okay, so then we go to the electron, and that's made up of leptons. And there are 6 kinds of leptons. There's 3 so you have the electron itself, and then outside of that, leptons, 3 of them that have no electric charges, and all 3 have. Talk about the leptons real quick, which are subparticles of the electron.
Right. This is one of the fascinating things as well regarding the structure, the magnificence of the 3. Both the neutrons and the protons are made from one material, the quarks, and each one of them is made up of 3 of them, just 3, nothing more. And then we come to the leptons. To the negative electron there's 6 is made of leptons, and there's 6 of them. 3 of them have electrical charges, and 3 do not. The lepton, however, is the biggest of the one with the electrical charges. So God used that in designing the atom. So those are fascinating, but these are all pieces of circumstantial evidence of the magnificence of the 3. It just flow right to the structure of the atom. When it came out, the Big Bang, I'm using the Big Bang because that's the only scientific evidence, the ones that are accepted by the community today regarding how the atom was formed. So I'm using the Big Bang. So when these things came out, the fire of the Big Bang, one of the fascinating things is that they came out structured this way, already structured as negative and positive and the neutron. So that's what's fascinating about this whole thing to me.
So let's go back to the power of the ark here. This always reminds me of Indiana Jones.
Right.
So the walls of the city of Jericho fell down in Joshua 6.
Right.
All right. So talk a little bit about what happened at Jericho.
Okay. So here's just follow through as we are going through this, presenting these final pieces of evidence. In the Bible, God planted these markers. One of the markers was the city of Jericho. This city was supposed to be, the walls were, it was an impenetrable city is what it says. Nobody can defeat this city because the walls are strong. So when Joshua and Israel came face up with them, God told them, carry the ark around 7 days, I believe. And then when he gives a command, they're supposed to blow the horns, and the city walls are supposed to fall down. So how important this thing is this is one of the things that people make fun of, but as I was as we already commented on it, is the atomic bomb was a manifestation of the ark. The ark was designed after the atom, and all these pieces of evidence we're gonna show you how God left the evidence, and it ended up here on earth. So the walls of Jericho was an example of those of one of the markers that God left in there. So we're gonna get to it in a little bit, explain to you the meaning when we finally end up using the atom bomb here on earth all these things showed up.
And the walls of Jericho, it was just basically totally annihilated.
Totally
right?
annihilated.
The city's totally annihilated, which should be indestructible, all because of the presence of the ark. And then we go to a second part of the evidence, which is the Philistines, when they took the ark, when they defeated Israel, I guess in Samuel 5, this is what happened. Wherever the ark went amongst the Philistines, there was great destruction and people died. God's hand was very heavy there as he struck men both small and great, and also, excuse me, this is interesting, with tumors.
Right.
All right. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So this is another, this is one of the markers. Was God had walked around, Israel, when he lost to the Philistines in a battle, took the ark to the field, and they end up losing. So Philistines took the ark. And then everywhere this ark went, the Philistines, everybody died just by being around the ark. Everybody just died. They get diseases called, in the New King James Version, the emerods, which it was explained as diseases, as emerods that were in their secret parts. It means, to me, I interpret it as you can't see it. There were diseases, but you can't see it because they were in their secret parts. So anyways, that's how the Philistines, that's what happened to Philistines. The ark killed young and old, according to the biblical record. There were no numbers, however. It's just they killed young and old, and they died from diseases.
Well, and it's interesting because tumors is mentioned in there. And what do we think of when we think of a nuclear bomb going off? You're looking at cancer, you're looking at radiation poisoning,
exactly.
You're looking at loss of limbs, all sorts of disease. And it's mentioned specifically cancer, in there. That's a little coincidental,
leukemia,
right?
Yeah, leukemia. These are diseases you can't see. Even today, I think there's still people are still making accusations that descendants of the people that were in Hiroshima, they still get leukemia and cancer today as a result of the radiation.
So then you transition, and then the ark was taken to the city of the Israelites known as Beth Shemesh, and they made a big mistake by apparently looking at it. Whether this is allegory or not, it is illustrating that when they looked at the ark, and it's very specific here, it'd be interesting to kind of investigate what's behind this number, and God killed 50,070 men that day.
It's one of those fascinating things to me, because when this happened to Philistines, there was no numbers, but when this happened in the city, this is God's own chosen tribe. This is His tribe, and God killed 50,000 people, 50,070 people, according to the record. So how God cited the number specifically was really important because. This is the number. This is why people have made claims in the past that it could be some kind of weapon, on why he killed so many people just by in his presence. As it turned out, when we had the atom bomb, that's exactly what happened. Was, massive loss of life, just like it happened here with this guy. So this is one of the pieces, of our circumstantial piece of evidence to show that the bomb was actually the ark was designed after the ark of the after the atom.
And then we have King David comes to take the ark, and God kills Uzzah, the son of Abinadab, for touching the ark to keep it from falling off the cart. You and I talked briefly about that. We're not sure what the significance is of him touching and getting killed there. However, then King David actually becomes afraid of the ark at that point,
right.
and gave it to Obed-Edom, who's a Gentile, which means basically not Jewish, right, at that time, to hold it. And once again, here's the number 3. It was there for 3 months, and God blessed this Gentile for keeping the ark. So essentially nothing happened to this Gentile, this non-Jew, while holding on to the ark when it was poisoning and annihilating everybody else around it.
Yeah. To me, this was a transitional point of the ark, of the disappearing of the ark. Because later on, in 2 weeks, we're going to start explaining how the ark, how America ended up creating an atom bomb. So this was, to me, this was a transitional period. This is why this incident was really, really important. A Gentile holding the ark and didn't affect him. God didn't kill him, just like it happened to Philistine. The ark was only the Levites can, they can't even look at it. This is why the transitional point from the 50,000 of people of Israelites that look at the ark and die, to a Gentile who kept the ark in his house and survived. So this is a transitional period why I claim that America was, this was a marker that says that that laid the foundation why America ended up recreating the Ark of the Covenant, which turned out to be the palm.
Well, one way to interpret this would be it's almost like a symbolism for God saying it doesn't matter who you are, and the Jewish have been idolizing false gods,
Right.
And now I'm going to allow a non-Jewish person to carry this, and you will notice that nothing seems to happen to them.
Nothing.
Almost like a learning lesson there. And then you also have, well, you say that this was the most prominent event of the Old Testament that the Ark was involved in,
Right.
which was the fact that it was given over to a Gentile, and the Gentile was not fazed by holding on to the
He
Ark.
wasn't cursed. He did. He survived it, and it was the last prominent event involving the Ark in the Old Testament, and it kind of disappeared after that. It just kind of went away. It wasn't mentioned anymore in all in the stories. But this was the last prominent event. That,
So then the other, I thought this was great. And this is something that I had never come across, I'd never thought about. But then we talk about the invisibility of the Ark, which we all know the atom is invisible. So when we go to the invisibility of the Ark, you'll notice in the Bible, they'll use the term, the measuring system of cubits, which is technically from the elbow to the tip of the middle finger. So it's about 1.5 feet. In measurement, and it was designed to a length of 2.5 cubits and 1.5 cubits in height and width. So 2.5 in length, 1.5 in height and width. However, what's significant about this here is King Solomon had built a room called the Holy of Holies to house the Ark in it, and the room was 10 cubits wide when measured from wall to wall. But when they measured from the sides of the Ark, they came up with 5 cubits on each side, which means that there was literally nothing inside the space.
right.
Symbolism of perhaps the atom once again.
Okay, so this is one of the best pieces of circumstantial evidence that that the Ark was designed of the atom, because we know the atom's it's invisible, until it forms, it manifests itself into shaping an ordinary matter. But as for example, the oxygen that we breathe is invisible, but it's made of atoms. So the initial structure, the structure of the atom as it came out of the fires of the Big Bang was invisible. So this is how God manifests the last piece of evidence, which is beautiful because it was not recorded in the Old Testament or the New Testament, in the whole Bible, but it came from the rabbis in the Talmud. Is what it's called. These are their own teachings and that they put together in a book. So it was recorded in there that when they measured the Ark from one side to the wall, from one side it came out to 10 to the same measurements of the room, which is 20 cubic feet or 10 cubits. So that means that the room was empty. And this is when they call it heaven and earth or something like that. This was a sign of the Ark was heaven and earth. This is why, because the room was a miracle. The room was empty. But I'm saying that what God left here was a marker that again contribute to all the pieces of
just
evidence.
a hint that this is the existence of the atom.
That he was fully aware of the atom, and he designed the Ark of the atom. So everything that we have so far, we're gonna go into next is these are pieces of markers that God left in the Bible that awaiting knowledge to accumulate to a degree where we understand these things, and that day is today. We understand these things now because of the discovery of the atom.
And the discovery of the atom. So we get the discovery of the atom on planet Earth. And what we're going to get into now, it makes you wonder if, I believe that there's just infinite amount of civilizations out there. That's just my take on this. Makes you wonder if this has happened over and over again. When a civilization in this particular universe recognizes what the atom is, which was the initiation of creation, and then we get our hands on it and go, oh, what can we do with this? And then we end up potentially destroying ourselves. And it's almost that opposites attract again. You get creation to destruction. And in here, when you're talking about the splitting of the atom to make the nuclear bomb, so when they created the atom bomb, you're not using the actual positive or negative particles. You're just using the neutron or the God particle.
That's
correct?
that's the particle you use.
And you're shooting a bunch of these neutrons into uranium-235 atoms. Okay, and when you're doing that is when one neutron hits the nucleus of the uranium-235, it then becomes uranium-236 because it's adding in a neutron. And when it does, the 236 wants to split apart. Okay, and then off of that, it gives off 3 neutrons. And then when those 3 neutrons hit other, and if this is going beyond, it's okay. This is just basically the chain reaction of what happens in a nuclear explosion. These 3 neutrons hit another U-235 atom in the area, and they turn into U-236. When they do that, they split apart and 3 times bigger, and the cycle goes on, and that's the chain reaction. So you're left alone and with sufficient U-235 atoms, and the energy keeps growing and growing and growing until finally it's an official atom bomb.
An atom bomb.
Okay. So you want to have anything you want to add on to that I missed?
That's pretty much the basic structure of our general understanding of how the atom bomb is created and how it came about was how neutron. It wasn't the proton or the electron that was used, but the neutron, which I claim it's a God particle.
So just to recap, in case you're just joining, is we went through the biblical evidence of the Ark of the Covenant being held within the atom. When the Ark was used against the city of Jericho, the walls fell to the ground. There was great slaughter in the city. When God walked with Israel in the desert, he appeared in 3 forms, which was cloud, fire, and light. That sounds familiar. Nuclear explosion. When the Philistines took the ark, God killed both young and old for being around the ark and affiliated them with tumors. And then when Israeli tribe of Beth Shemesh looked directly at the ark, you had 50,070 people die. So obviously capable of destruction, even if it was the initiation of creation. So now we go to the earthly link between the ark and the atom bomb. So the destruction of Jericho in the Bible, we outline the destruction there. We don't want to get redundant. The walls fell down. But all of this is going to tie together when we come down to kind of the tragedy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki with the atomic bomb. And before I go there, because we're actually going to do some of the quotes from people that had witnessed this and then come back and put it into context of what we've already covered, especially with God being the cloud, the light, and the fire. Anything you want to touch on with going into Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And I'll read some of the quotes. Okay,
what we're doing here, we're going to give you present you the evidence to confirm what we claim is that God is the neutron in the atom. So when they created the atom bomb, they used a neutron, and then when the bomb exploded in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, God's signature was of cloud, fire, and light showed up. So this is a piece of evidence to confirm our claim that God is a neutron in the atom, and the Ark of the Covenant was designed after the atom, and the atom bomb provided the final piece of evidence for us. So this is a quote from eyewitnesses, as reported by the Atomic Heritage Foundation, by Paul Tippett and Curtis LeMay, dated June 5th, 2014. So we're going to read you some of these eyewitnesses' statements from recorded by the...
All right, so I'll start with a college professor. A college professor said this: I climbed Hikiyama Hill and looked down. I saw that Hiroshima had disappeared. I was shocked by the sight. What I felt then and still feel now, I just can't explain with words. Of course, I saw many dreadful scenes after that. But that experience, looking down and finding nothing left of Hiroshima, was so shocking that I simply can't express what I felt. Hiroshima didn't exist. That was mainly what I saw. Hiroshima did not exist.
There's the walls of Jericho right there. That's an example of an eyewitness here on earth. It just didn't, the city just destroyed.
Just annihilated. And then you have navigator Theodore Van Kirk, who was on the Enola Gay plane. He was the navigator that on the plane that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. He said, on viewing the atomic fireball, I don't believe anyone ever expected to look at a sight quite like that. We could no longer see the city where we had seen a clear city 2 minutes before. We could see smoke and fires creeping up the sides of the mountains. That sound familiar?
Yes.
And then we have a Protestant minister. The feeling that I had was that everyone was dead. The whole city was destroyed. I thought this was the end of the Hiroshima of Japan, of humankind. This was God's judgment on man.
Okay, those are examples of how what happened to Jericho, the walls of Jericho, what happened when they affected the ark and they carried the ark around it. So this is a projection in the Bible of what was of how the atom bomb will affect the human population. So what happened here in Hiroshima was prophesied by the walls of Jericho. Okay, so now we get to the mushroom,
the fire, and the light.
fire and light. So these are important because these are God's signature in the Bible.
So the Hiroshima bomb, so the mushroom cloud and fire. We all know what the mushroom cloud looks like. Right. It's kind of interesting. I actually wrote about this briefly in my book. Where I grew up was essentially a nuclear power plant up in Southeast Washington. So I went to Hanford High School. Our rival high school, we only had two high schools in the city, was the Richland Bombers. And it sounds horrible, but their insignia is still the mushroom cloud, because that city was so kind of soaked in pride that they had been in development of the Manhattan Project. It's not here nor there, but it was interesting that, I'm writing about that, and now here we are talking about the mushroom cloud and the fire, and a couple of quotes. Go ahead.
It was one of those coincidental things that we just happened to meet, and your background, your father was...
My dad was a nuclear engineer for 30 years. My grandpa worked out at the plant.
One of those weird things.
It was a weird place, too.
One of those weird things that how I think we're supposed to meet and do this
totally.
together,
There's no coincidence there. Nobody will talk me into that otherwise. And then you have pilot Paul Tibbets of the Enola Gay. So this is the pilot of the plane that dropped the bomb. We turned back to look at Hiroshima. The city was hidden by that awful cloud, boiling up, mushrooming, terrible, and incredibly tall. And then you have the tail gunner of the Enola Gay. The mushroom itself was a spectacular sight, a bubbling mass of purple-gray smoke, and you could see it had a red core in it, and everything was burning inside.
And there's your mushroom and fire. These were God's signature in the Bible when he walked with Israel. It was mushroom during the day, fire and light at night. So now when they used the atom bomb, when they created the atom bomb, which I say was a manifestation of the Ark of the Covenant, both were designed. The Ark was designed after the atom's design, and the bomb was also. They also used the atom particles to the neutrons specifically to design the atom. This is the outcome. God presented himself during the explosion of this bomb.
As we go through this, I choose not to look at the negativity, but you can't ignore it sometimes as far as the state that we're in, as far as the world goes. And if you're listening to this, listen to these quotes. If we are on the verge of any sort of World War III, listen to this destruction as a reminder and how insane it is that we're even close to even talking about this. Yep. You get the Nagasaki bomb. Co-pilot Fred Olivi of Boxcar plane that dropped the bomb on Nagasaki. Quote, "I've never seen anything like it. Biggest explosion I've ever seen. This plume of smoke I'm seeing is hard to explain. A great white mass of flame is seething within the white mushroom-shaped cloud. It has a pinkish salmon color. The base is black and is breaking a little way down from the mushroom." Okay, another one. This one's from a 13-year-old school child. Okay, This is August 6th of 2000, or reported by Lily Rothman. This child witnessed the Hiroshima bomb. Quote, "I struggled to free myself from the broken fragments and looked around. I thought that gas tanks had exploded. Through a hole in the roof, I could see clouds swirling in a cone. Some were black, some were pink. There were fires in the middle of the clouds."
There's your cloud and fire. All right, the next one. So now this is a manifestation of the stories in the Bible. These are the markers that God left there of the ark being designed after the atom. So we ended up designing the bomb with the atom. And guess what? These markers that God left in the Bible showed up here on earth. So the evidence literally fell out of the Bible and landed right here on earth. So and I was talking about the atom bomb this is what I'm discussing in the book. I know the thing looked evil, but the thing is because there's so much destruction it did to mankind, but there's something that we overlook as well. And I explained in the book that the Bible is about first and foremost about brain development. Going to heaven is secondary. You can't get to heaven unless you know how to live here on earth. So And that's what that's what the biblical stories are for. It was about brain development. So we know the history of mankind, you know, from the time Jesus was here on earth, even before that, there's been nothing but violence. But when the atom bomb was created and it happened, and it came about and it happened, what happened in Hiroshima, everybody stopped for a second, you know, and the atom bomb actually gave us a little bit of breathing room for society to evolve and mature and get better. We actually got better because after the atom bomb, there's an explosion of knowledge. And I'm using a theory called social brain hypothesis to explain that. This is the reason why there was an explosion of knowledge, because everybody rested. There was some wars here and there, but the world rested for a little bit, for a minute there, and as a result, knowledge exploded. We have ended up, we build stations up there in the middle between heaven and earth. We have satellites cruising space. We have a satellite that fell on the sun, that touched the sun, and all these kind of things came about was a result of man resting from all these wars of history of wars and history of Christian wars especially. So, but that's just one of the benefits, as I explained a lot more in the books. One of the benefits that as a result of the atom bomb.
So in the Bible, so God is referring to Israel as I am the cloud, the fire, and the light. So we've already covered the mushroom cloud. That there was fire. These witnesses saying they saw fire within the actual cloud itself going on, and then you get the bright light. And so the bright light, you had General Thomas Farrell, who's the deputy commander of the Manhattan Project, and he was in the control bunker with Oppenheimer when the blast went off. And Oppenheimer was a movie that came out last summer, actually a really good movie, and definitely worth watching. And when the blast went off, he said the whole country was lighted by a searing light with the intensity many times that of the midday sun. So there's your bright light. Co-pilot Fred Olivia of the Boxcar plane that dropped the bomb on Nagasaki reported, "Suddenly the light of 1,000 suns illuminated the cockpit. Even with my dark welder's goggles, I winced and shut my eyes for a couple of seconds. I guessed we were about 7 miles from ground zero and headed directly away from the target, yet the light blinded me for an instant. I had never experienced such an intense bluish light, maybe 3 or 4 times brighter than the sun shining above us." Okay, so you're getting all of these, perceived coincidental testimonies in the Bible that come through and are ending here with the destruction of the atom bomb. And then finally, and we'll wrap up with the atomic bomb here, the Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center reported a bright light of the first nuclear bomb with an article titled, and by the way, here's another significance of the 3. It was titled The Trinity, the world's first nuclear test. Reports from witness came from as far as 200 miles away. A forest ranger 150 miles west of the blast said he saw a flash of fire, an explosion, and black smoke. An individual 150 miles north said the explosion lighted up the sky like the sun. I know you probably have something to say about the Trinity. Once again, the significance of 3. What about the Trinity?
Oh, it's one of those coincidental pieces of evidence that it just fell out of the Bible and landed here on earth. And I explained, this is one of them. It just happened, the title of the project is called the Trinity. Nobody knows why the guy mentioned that, but I as I discussed in the book, I really suspected because of the atom's particles. There's 3 particles. And these guys already know where the atom bomb is going to come from. It's going to be made from the atom. So that's why I think the Trinity title fits right in with the evidence as a transitional period of the ark from the Bible was going to manifest itself here in the United States. And this is one of the pieces of evidence. It's just coincidentally, they call it, the people that were in charge of the project call it the Trinity, So it's one of those things that they're pieces of circumstantial evidence, however, that support my claims that the atom bomb was actually the manifestation of the Ark of the Covenant.
So we'll just recap on the atom bomb. So it was made from the neutron particle, which is the God particle, and the neutral particle. When it exploded in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, witnesses saw a mushroom cloud of fire and bright light. We had 90 to 166,000 dead in Hiroshima in the 4 months following the explosion, as reported by the Atomic Heritage Foundation. Diseases that killed more people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki included leukemia, different forms of cancers, and others in the secret parts of the body, essentially saying that these are the invisible parts of the body. So internally
is where the disease
is the destruction that it did.
These are the emeralds. They call it because they changed the name later on to tumors, but that's the original disease was emeralds, and they were in secret parts. So this is the diseases that's going to be the result of being around the ark. That was a result of being around the ark, and this is the same diseases we end up here on earth. I'm claiming that this was meant to be the diseases that fall out from the explosion. That's going to happen to people, and that's what happened in Hiroshima, and the cancer and leukemia, all kinds of stuff that went on for generations since then. And that's a result of these are diseases, the emeralds of the Bible. These diseases are the cancer that we have today.
So this is probably about a time we have to wrap up, but I think this is a good time to kind of state we're obviously in a sad state of affairs, but I was listening to that song by Billy Joel, "We Didn't Start the Fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't put it out," or something to that effect, but we tried to fight it. So this has been going on for millennia. The world seems to have been in turmoil forever, and within the atom, and all the universe, if God is present in the atom, one thing we didn't get to on the Ark of the Covenant is that as it was being carried, it was kind of an illustration that the atom and God is being carried everywhere. And if that's the case, and we talked about this on the last episode, people, especially in religion, I even hear it, I go to a Christian church, but I hear it in Christianity, is when you start talking about God being within you, it's like, whoa, hey, this is an external being that we're looking up to, and you're just a broken person, a fallen person, and can never be what this is, but you can try. And I don't think that was the point of the story of Jesus in general. It was, hey, you can be like me. I don't believe he came here to show us how weak we were, but how powerful we can be. And there's many verses that back that up. But when you start bringing that up, there's some manipulation and some twisting is, oh, no. It didn't mean God is within you. It means he's in the midst of you. Since when does within turn into midst? So if we are 7 billion atoms, and God is within the atom and all creation, we have the power inside of us to find God, to make that choice of whether or not we want to be positive or negative. And I always define that as positive is service to others, negative, service to self. There's no judgment one way or another, but you have a choice on which journey you want to take. And I believe that service to others is the more righteous journey for everyone. When you serve others, you serve yourself. I always wrap up the show that way. So did you want to add anything that we may have missed as you digest it before we wrap up in prayer?
It's really important that how we put the evidence together that the neutron is God's particle. The neutron is God's particle. The evidence is now laid out in front of you. You make your call. But so far, the evidence fell out of the Bible and landed here on the earth. It's just, unfortunately, it came through the atom bomb, but that's what God was in the Bible, where he was cloud, fire, and light. Cloud, fire, and light, and it showed up here when they used the bomb on the Japan.
And I hope reading this, because I was reading it, I was like, this is actually a good reminder. Like if this is what these witnesses are explaining, we don't think about it too much. This is insanity, and this is horrendous. So as we wrap up here, we've had some feedback on the show, and it's been very positive. People have really liked the different perspective and us not pushing an agenda on anybody, just a different perspective on what these allegories of the Bible may be telling us. But I had a few close friends say, you know what, Jason, you and Time Out need to share your stories again. And we just briefly kind of covered it in the first show that we did. But the reason I think that we can add value here is it gives people hope. You and I, both of us, should not be here talking. I mean, we could easily be dead. We could have gone down a whole different path, but the universe, God brought us together, and we're here for a reason. And this is a great journey, and I think it's going to last for a long time because we have a lot of knowledge between us and we have a lot of experience. And I don't think that you can teach without knowing. And the only way you know is by experiencing. And both of us have been through some pretty hardcore experiences. It's all relative, but we have a good story. And the story is not only individualized, but how we came together, and give people out there, because there's a lot of people struggling. Both of us have experience with like I said earlier, with alcoholism. And, I was thinking on the way over here, the treatment center that I ended up at in Long Beach, we had over 100 people in the treatment center. And there may be more, but this goes about with the statistics correctly. I know 3 of us. There's many people are dead, many people just relapsed and are back, or many people are just out on the run still. 3 of us that actually made it through. And so if I can give people hope that it can happen, we're also going to talk about some of the mindsets that are talked about in recovery, which I'm not here to break apart recovery. I think everybody should go through the 12 steps. I think this world would be a much more harmonious place if everybody did the 12 steps, because it really has nothing to do with substances or alcohol. It has to do with finding yourself, taking an inventory, making amends, and finding, more importantly, something higher than yourself. So as we go forward, we're looking forward to it. Why don't you go ahead and, as tradition, lead us out in prayer, my man.
Thank you. Great show. Thank you for listening in. Hopefully we can provide more value for you and in your journey, because we believe in what we're saying. We believe we found the important things that have been misinterpreted in the scriptures. So thank you for joining us. So I end this session with a short prayer. Thank you, Father in heaven, for everything that you've done for us. Thank you for your presence today. Thank you for putting the right words in our mouths to bring out to the world. We're still going to ask for your Spirit to guide us and help us each day as we go through our tasks in life. Thank you again for your presence here today. And I ask for blessings for this nation and the world. I ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. With my brother from another mother, Time Out Tumua, author of The Magnificence of...
You're listening to The Magnificence of the Three with Jason and Time Out, only on LA Talk Radio.